Elijah runs from Jezebel. The fire fell from heaven in a moment no one would ever forget. On Mount Carmel, Elijah stood alone before hundreds of prophets of Baal and a watching nation. The altar was soaked with water, the sacrifice impossible to burn by human means. Then Elijah prayed not loudly, not desperately, but confidently, and the Lord answered. Fire descended, consuming the sacrifice, the stones, the dust, and even the water in the trench. The people fell face down and cried, "The Lord, He is God." It was the greatest victory of Elijah's life. The false prophets were defeated. The long drought ended as rain poured from the sky. Elijah even outran King Ahab's chariot back to Jezreel, energized by the power of the Lord. It seemed as though revival had finally come to Israel, but triumph can be followed by terror. When King Ahab reached the palace, he told Queen Jezebel everything Elijah had done, how fire fell from heaven, and how the prophets of Baal were killed. Jezebel's heart hardened. She did not tremble before God's power. Instead, her rage burned hotter than the fire on Carmel. She sent a message to Elijah, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like one of them." The words struck Elijah like a blow. The fearless prophet, who had faced kings and crowds, suddenly felt fear grip his soul. Exhaustion settled in. The adrenaline faded. The weight of years of opposition crashed down upon him. Elijah ran. He fled south to Beersheba in Judah, far from Jezebel's reach. There, he left his servant behind and continued alone into the wilderness. Step by step, the silence grew louder. The heat pressed in. The loneliness deepened. At last, Elijah collapsed under a broom tree. The prophet who had called down fire now whispered a broken prayer. "I have had enough, Lord. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." Elijah was not angry with God. He was empty. He believed his victory had changed nothing. Israel had not truly turned back. Jezebel still ruled. He felt alone, hunted, and useless. In his despair, sleep overtook him. But God was still watching. An angel touched Elijah and said, "Get up and eat." Beside him was freshly baked bread and a jar of water. Elijah ate, drank, and lay down again. A second time, the angel touched him. "Get up and eat," the angel said, "for the journey is too much for you." Strengthened by that food, Elijah rose and walked not for a day or two, but for 40 days and 40 nights, until he reached Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, the same mountain where Moses once encountered the Lord. There, Elijah found a cave and hid inside. Then the word of the Lord came to him. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah poured out his heart. "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." God told him, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord." As Elijah stood, a powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind came an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. Then came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and stepped to the mouth of the cave. The whisper carried the presence of God, not in terror, not in spectacle, but in nearness and compassion. Again God asked, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah repeated his pain, his fear, his loneliness. And God responded not with rebuke, but with direction and reassurance. God told Elijah he was not alone. 7,000 in Israel had not bowed to Baal. God's work was still unfolding. Elijah's mission was not over. God sent him back not to hide, but to anoint new kings and to call Elisha as his successor. The prophet, who thought his story was finished, discovered that God still had chapters to write. Elijah left Horeb renewed not because the threat disappeared, but because he learned a deeper truth. God is present not only in fire and victory, but also in silence, weakness, and whispers. And the God who met Elijah in despair would continue to guide him faithful to the end.